Hello and welcome back to the Property Investors Handbook Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bell, joined again by Colleen Sutherland, the seasoned owner of Sutherland's Property Management Group. Today's episode focuses on an essential topic for every property investor and tenant alike: insurance for rental properties. We'll explore the crucial insurances that safeguard landlords and tenants. Colleen, it's fantastic to have you here to shed light on this for us.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Okay, so let's start with the key one for landlords. Landlords insurance. An absolute must, firstly, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And a lot of agents, including myself, now don't manage properties that don't have that landlord's
Just won't
insurance.
do it.
No.
Yep.
No.
Look, understandably.
We call it a human nature insurance, really, in the industry.
Right.
Simply because we can do all the due diligence in the world, but unfortunately things can go wrong throughout a tenancy, or somebody has told us something that is not necessarily correct and we've picked up a dud tenant.
Sure.
But when things go wrong is when you need that landlord's insurance. And if you've got a good landlord's insurance, it's worth its weight in gold.
Right. Firstly, what's the difference between a good landlord's insurance and a not so good one?
So what I've found in our experience is there's landlord's insurance that's standalone, like an agency, an independent agency.
Sure.
And there's landlord's insurance that you get attached to your mortgage, the bank,
right,
wherever you save your money, things like that. Those are the ones that have hidden clauses in them that you may not be able to claim as much there as you would on an independent policy.
So your advice would be always to landlords to get a standalone policy.
Yes.
Because there are agencies that specialise in them too, isn't there?
Yep. Yes. So there's a lot of independent ones, and there's about 3 or 4, just a handful that I've worked with that are good, and then some are better than others.
Sure. Now, what type of things does landlord insurance cover? Give me the standards firstly.
Well, in a house, because the house and the unit's going to be different, but in a house, the what will be covered will be a defaulting tenancy. So let's just say there's a marriage breakdown and he moves out and leaves her holding the bag, and she's got to pay for this huge rent
on
that
her own.
Obviously she can't, and then she ends up having to move because she's fallen behind in her rent.
Yep.
So it will cover the rent or the defaulting rent up until the time you can re-tenant it. And that's why one of the reasons why we always suggest that you have a fixed term tenancy over the property.
Sure.
So it's not just, you're guaranteed of rent.
Yep.
Then got to
meets
back
the
yourself.
criteria
Yes.
of the insurance.
And then if it's like a domestic violence situation, and unfortunately we're seeing the rise of that.
Yep.
If it's domestic violence situation, it will cover damage that's caused to the property that will help fix it up.
Right.
Yeah.
What about damage just where you've got a rogue tenant, you do get them out, through whatever means eventually, but they have done a lot of damage. Their bond isn't going to cover it. That is that covered by landlord insurance while you chase the tenant?
It can be, yes.
Yep.
So if it's just general cleanup costs like cleaning the house, getting a bond clean, doing general bond things, no, you can't claim that.
Sure.
However, if the tenant's moved out and caused a lot of damage that wasn't there at the last inspection,
kicked walls in, etc.
Yes, then yes, that is. So it's how we then make the claim as to how much we can claim. So there is a certain way that we write the claim up that maximises the return for the landlord.
Again, another great reason to be with a property manager who knows this stuff.
Yes. So
can you give me an example or tell me about a time that you've had a tenant who's had good landlord insurance where you've actually got sat back and go, wow, this was really worth its weight in gold?
Yeah. So we picked up a property with a tenant in there, and she was nice. However, she took on a partner that was not as nice as her, and things went downhill from there.
Yep.
And the landlord had a really good landlord's protection insurance over the property. And so by the time she moved out, and she was very remorseful, but it was her partner, and we sent her on her way, but she eventually had split up with this guy, so it was good to give her a reference that he wasn't going to come back.
Yep.
But what had happened there was he'd caused a lot of damage to the property during his stay at the property and then on his way out, and then didn't pay the rent. So we had, I think it was 4 weeks rent. We did go through the normal process, but it was also above the bond. So what happens is how it's written up, the excess on the policy was the bond. So the bond is 4 times the weekly rent, and we were able to claim that bond and disperse that bond in general cleanup costs, and then anything over the bond, we were able to make a claim on the insurance. And I think he was really only out of pocket about $500 odd.
Wow.
But the cleanup costs and the rent was close to $10,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you can see the value there.
Yes, but we were able to claim so much. He'd run into the garage door and damaged the side fence and all sorts of things. And while it's a big job for us to clean that up, we were able to do that at a minimal loss to the landlord.
Sure. Okay. So what other insurances do landlords need? They obviously need to have building insurance.
Yeah, that is an absolute must, and it's written in the legislation that they have to have public liability insurance. So with your building insurance, you automatically get a level of public liability. Most is about $5 or $10 million, and then there's some at $20 million, depending on the property.
Sure. Okay. So that's the landlord's.
It's a requirement of the landlord to have
responsibility.
Yeah.
Sure. So are there any others that landlords need to think about, or is that pretty much it?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Because you're protecting your income and you're protecting your property.
Right.
And in investment, that's what you need.
Now, I'm assuming it's the tenant's responsibility to have contents insurance.
It is. So we do let them know at the time of signing up that it's not covered. So if there is a burst water pipe, the property and its contents are covered by the insurance, but no resultant damage if there's damage to their furniture.
Right. So to clarify that, burst pipe, hot water system, carpets are covered.
Yes, if
but anything on the carpet isn't covered.
No, and that's because the landlord doesn't own what is on the carpet.
Right.
Unless it's a furnished property.
Let's take this a step further. Massive floods, we see those in southeast Queensland. House is covered, walls are covered, carpets, curtains, all that. It gets to the roof, but none of your gear's covered unless you've got your own contents.
Renter's insurance. Yeah, that's right. So a renter's insurance will have contents, and it will cover the rent in the time that it's needed. So say you've had an accident at work and you're on workers' compensation, or it's not covered, making a claim on that renter's insurance will cover your rent until the time you're back on your feet. And
okay, so this is something I'm not aware of. So there's a renter's insurance. Which includes contents.
It can include if you tick the box.
Or you can say, but there is I understood there was a contents insurance to cover damage to your property, everything in the house, garage, etc. Did not realise there was actually a renter's insurance. So that can be separate or
combined. Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Wow.
And it's really beneficial to you to take out. But at the time you're seeing that insurance is both together is higher than just my contents. No, I won't take out the insurance. And then if something happens, it's all downhill from there. So you want to expect that nothing will ever happen, but then you plan for the best and expect the worst.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or is it the other way around? Hang on.
Plan for the worst, plan for the best. And now I'm confused.
I know. So am I.
Plan for the
for the worst, but expect the best.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So let me recap. So get a good landlord's insurance.
That's a must. That's
not
a no-brainer.
As part of something else. Get a standalone and have a good look at it. And I'm sure you'll be willing to tell anyone who gets in contact with you, your preferred suppliers of that of those insurances, but get a good one if you're a landlord. Obviously, you need to have building insurance. It's a must.
Building insurance with public liability.
With public liability.
The other thing, when I said at the start that houses and units are different, units are covered under the body corporate insurance because that's why you pay.
Right.
It forms part of your body corporate levies.
So that's covered there.
Yeah, it is. However, if you change the floor from carpet to timber and something happens, that timber floor, if you haven't got approval, won't be covered.
Right.
So there's a lot of variable factors in a unit because, where the leak comes from, if it's common wall or an exclusive wall, it's just a minefield. So, yeah, just make sure that your investment property is covered for its contents and not just the landlord's protection insurance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So building insurance with your public liability, and of course for a tenant, and something new to me, so contents insurance, make sure you've got your gear covered, but there's also a renter's insurance that can cover you for rent under certain circumstances.
Yeah. And it happens when you just don't even think it's going to happen. It may happen, and you want to know that you're covered.
Here's one last question to throw at you. Can a landlord insist on a tenant having renter's insurance?
No.
No.
And that
I'm
is
sure
another
a lot
reason.
would like to.
Yes, but that's another reason why the landlord takes out the landlord's protection policy,
Sure.
which is also claimable on your tax. It's a tax deduction, and then he's covered, and then the tenant's in default, which you don't want to happen, and you minimise it, but I can't minimise everything.
Yep, understand. Well, look, I've certainly learned a bit of stuff here today, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have as well. So, look, remember, having the right insurance is not just compliance, it's a crucial part of protecting your investment, ensuring peace of mind. So, for more insights and professional management services, visit spmg.com.au. I'm Adam Bell, and this has been the Property Investors Handbook Podcast with Colleen Sutherland. Make sure you tune in next time for more essential property management insights. Colleen, thanks once again.
Thanks, Adam.